Farmers who practice environmentally friendly practices get more money back in their pockets.
23 News reporter Jake Pearson talks to agribusiness leaders about the Grown Climate Smart program that helps with the savings.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture funded project gives $40 million back to farmers who use sustainable agriculture techniques like cover crops, windbreaks, and nutrient management plans.
Being a sustainable farmer is a generational thing.
With a business that flows through the family lineage, the Kennays boast a long history looking at the big picture.
You hope to pass the farm on, and in order to do that, you have to pass along the soil. And if you keep the soil in place, you can pass along the farm.
In the 1880s, the Kennay family moved from Virginia to Illinois to grow grain. Nearly a century and a half later, family members stick to their roots, using environmentally sustainable farming practices.
Reduce tillage, or sometimes no tillage. If you don't disturb the soil, it doesn't take things with it like fertilizer and herbicides and chemicals. We install a lot of waterways, and we enroll a lot of the acres in the Conservation Reserve program.
Now, the family is being rewarded for its foresight with a Grown Climate Smart grant funded by the USDA.
It's awesome to do these localized projects where we really promote sustainability and working with a distillery here who are already focused on sustainability. It's really exciting to see them take on our Grown Climate Smart logo onto their products and offer products to consumers to kind of purchase with their moral compass.
To be recognized as a sustainable farmer is a big deal, and hopefully it will get some response from ultimately the end consumer.
Throughout 2023, the Grown Climate Smart program enrolled more than 160 farmers across 11 states, sending out $6.5 million incentives to farmers who practice sustainable techniques.
Thank you, Jake. And the Kennay Farms Distillery is located in Rochelle's historic Hub Theater, which was renovated in 2016 to hold distilling equipment, but still keeps much of its original design.